afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in until the point with the king. You guys find us Apple, Amazon, Spotify. If you don't want to see these three gorgeous faces, which I know you guys did last time, I saw the comments, click subscribe, click the bell so you're notified for the rest of the stuff, especially when we have fantastic guests coming on the show. And right now I feel a little bit pressured, guys. I feel like a player, since I'm dressed in a suit, in a draft with the coach from the East Coast, Tim Roach, and I got my man right there to look up the contract, Mr. Kirk Alfaro, Esquire. I feel a little bit pressured, guys. I'm just saying, that's all it is. Okay, and I got the ball in my hand. So guys, we're here to dissect something that a lot of Raptors fans out there are wondering and pondering, and I see a lot of rumors and I see a lot of things going on out there. And let's keep the streak up. The last 2 years, in the words of my co-host Skip, we've been correct, and check it out this year because we will be correct again. Okay, hopefully. Got my fingers crossed. But the topic today that I would like to ask you guys, since I am not, my background, I am not into the collegiate side of sports. I'm more focused on the NBA because there's thousands of players in the collegiate era and they move on to other things as opposed to becoming professional. Now, I'm going to ask you, Coach, the Raptors currently, you and I have spoken about this before, about possible trades, but currently the Raptors have the number 13th overall pick in the coming 2023 NBA draft. Now, keep the streak going, my brother. Who do you see coming to the Toronto Raptors? I know you've been out there doing this. I've seen you out there on Basketball Rewind. Shout out to him. Seen you out there doing that. So I would like to know, who would you think the Raptors should draft at number 13?
So I have like a tier of prospects. What I mean is I have a tier 1 prospects. So
Okay.
I have 4 guys who potentially are going to be in that range. I think 2 of them might go before 13, but I'm going to list them anyway. So number 1 for me is Cason Wallace. I've been very high on Cason Wallace since the beginning of the year. 6'2", he's 6'4" in shoes, I guess, point guard out of Kentucky. Kentucky guards, there's just something about them when they go to the NBA, they seem to have success.
Yes.
I'm really a big fan of him and what he can bring to this basketball team moving forward. Grady Dick is our second prospect out of Kansas, 6'7", can shoot the lights out. I got to give a shout out to my good friend Beyond, who says he could be a little Klay Thompson-esque. I've also seen some Reggie Miller comparisons in there as well. He's a lights out shooter, actually an underrated defender too, an athlete. So I think Grady Dick could be there. The other one is Keontae George out of Baylor, 6'4", very good athlete. I think of the prospects that I've listed in the next one I'm going to list, Keontae probably has the highest upside of all of them. He has the chance to be a 3-level scorer. Think of his ceiling could be somewhat Bradley Beal-ish if he hits right. And the last prospect who's in there is Kobe Buffkin out of Michigan. His stock has been rising over the last month or so. When Jet Howard went down this year in Michigan, he had like 2 ankle injuries at the end of the year. Buffkin really took over. Now he's a 6'4" point guard, really lanky, but his shot form is good defender, has no really major weaknesses. The only thing is he's thin, so he's going to have to get stronger and put on some weight. So between those 4, I think my ideal one would be Cason Wallace, but I think Keontae George, he's going to be there when we select. So I'm going to take a prediction and say that Keontae George will be the guy who we select at 13.
Hey, you're not Miss Cleo. You just made 4 predictions, so I'm not going to hold you to one. Okay? Call me now. Kurt, what do you have to say in response to Coach's predictions? What do you think?
Those are all good picks. I'm going to go and just say that I hope Toronto gets Grady Dick, and I'm glad to hear Coach's friend who was high up on him as well. He's predicted to go anywhere from number 8 to number, I think, 15, depending on what mock draft you're looking at. But, you know, even if Toronto gets a sense that some other team might pick him up, you know, I would look at trading down to get, you know, like much lower into the draft just to make sure to get this guy. Because
why?
Because right off the bat, it's gonna cover one of Toronto's biggest weaknesses, which is shooting. He's a lights out shooter, like Coach said. You know, that's what the scouting report is. He's got a good nose for the ball, creates his own shot, and that's exactly what Toronto needs right now. So, yeah, I would do that. That would be my pick.
So your prediction is, because I wanted to get into your prediction. So, like, based on what you've seen.
Well, I hope, you know.
Go on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my prediction, my hope, you know, I just hope it's him. I just hope that they trade down and get somebody for him, or trade away somebody to grab him to, you know, just to make sure that you get him. So that would be my prediction, because that would cover Toronto's biggest weakness right now. So I would hope that Toronto would go after somebody like him, like aggressively.
That's interesting that Toronto needs to address that area, because
of shooting,
from what we've seen this past season. You know what I mean? Coach, what do you think about what Kirk has to say? Captain Kirk.
I think if Grady is there, he definitely should be considered. I just think Grady's going to be gone before we pick. I think him and Case and Wallace are both going to be gone. I think Grady could. I've seen Grady go as high as number 5 to Detroit. You pair him with Cade and Jaden Ivey, makes a lot of sense. You could put him in Indiana. They need a 3. Grady in this NBA, you know, there's a lot of value that he brings. I think Case and Wallace brings a lot of value too. You know, he's probably the best guard defender coming into this draft. He was one of the top point of attack defenders at Kentucky and in the NCAA, I should say. Case and Wallace also is a really good athlete as well. I just think those guys are going to be gone, and I'm thinking it's going to come down to George and maybe Kobe Buffkin. I don't think you lose either way with whoever you select. I just hope it's one of those 4 that are on the board that we're able to get, unless all 4 of them are gone. But I don't think they will be. I think one of those guys or a couple of them will be on the board when we select.
That's actually interesting that you guys think about that, but we aren't the only ones trying to predict things. I'm not predicting nothing because I've never gotten it right, and I'm not familiar with these players. That's why I'm happy you guys are here to educate me. But if you guys can excuse me for 1 second, I do have to check something here. Give me a second. Hey, Lithuania. Yeah, let me talk to Arturas. Yo, Art, can you pull up that clip from Vancouver of my man? Yeah, let's see what he's got to say. All right, I love you too. Peace.
Ryan, so you asked me who I think the Raptors will draft with the 13th pick in the 2023 NBA draft. The Toronto Raptors select Waraich Report. Now, this is someone I've been big on for several months now. A lot of his game screams to Toronto Raptors. He's listed at around 6'6", 6'7". He's got a 7'2" wingspan. Now, although you could probably put him at the small forward position, in many interviews he's actually said he's a shooting guard. So having a 6'6", 6'7" shooting guard would be amazing for the Raptors. He's also a very pesky defender due to his long arms. He's very quick on his feet, so he can guard quick point guards, which is something we've had an issue with. He's a good defender. He's got underrated passing. He's got good dribbling skills. He can kind of do it all except for shooting. His shot does look good, but he's not very good at three-point shooting, and I think that's going to irk a lot of fans. I'm personally excited about him. I think he's got insane potential. He's going to turn 19 in a few more days, so he's a very young player. I think you could work with him, and he's got insane potential. So that's my pick for this year's NBA draft.
Okay, Prob just made his pick, which he pretty much solidified. He just said one player. He didn't go at it and make a couple decisions judging on it. So what do you guys think of his pick?
I like Rupert's defensive versatility. I think that he could be once he develops a fairly good 3-and-D prospect for a team. I think you're going to have to wait a couple of years. I'd be more inclined to have Rupert if we had a second first-round pick that you're willing to develop over time. I think it's a bit of a reach to have him at 13, though. Most people in the draft have him somewhere in the 20s, maybe late teens, but more or less he's in the 20s area. I think they're a little concerned about his three-point shooting and the shooting in general with Rupert. And I feel that we have a lot of guys like him already. And me personally, I'm trying to move away from that. I don't want to see so much more redundancy from this team. So Rupert, nice young prospect. I think he's going to be pretty good in the league. Some of his comparisons actually are to Mikal Bridges. I've seen Otto Porter comparisons, even like an OG comparison, just because of what he can do defensively. It's the offense that concerns me. And the offense with Keontae George, that does not concern me. That intrigues me. So I think I would have to disagree with Prob on this one for the 13th pick with Rupert. But a nice prospect, though.
Thank you, Prob Waraich from the Waraich Report. Make sure you guys go check out his Raptors podcast. Kirk, what are your thoughts on what Prob had to say about this?
Well, he mentioned that he's the type of player that kind of is a Toronto Raptor kind of mold player, what they've traditionally gone for. And what does that really mean now? We have a new coach coming in. Is small ball, that positionless basketball still in play? Is that how they're going to emphasize that? What happens with the new coach? If somebody like Glenn Rivers comes in here, I don't know if he's ever done or ever played that kind of basketball before. And like Coach mentioned, we have just a bunch of players already like that. I know Toronto's all about development and developing these players. And this guy, I just watched him. He's raw. He's very raw. Defensively, he could be a difference changer on the contending team coming off the bench as a defensive stopper, that's him being that type of role player. But again, like Coach said, offensively, he's just too raw right now, and for the Raptors to get a defensive player like that, we have to be looking at the offense. That's been our problem. And he's a long-term kind of prospect right now in my eyes. So yeah, I hope not.
Well, okay. So guys, we've made our picks. I don't have any picks, but now going forward with the Toronto Raptors, they've adopted the style of the positionless basketball, the positionless 6'9", having all these guys basically be the same, slightly different. But do you think that with Masai and Bobby, can we trust that? And Kirk, you just touched on it, and I've spoken about this before, about a new coach coming in. Do you think they're going to abandon this positionless 6'9", and do you think we'll see a sign of it based on who they draft?
It depends. If they're going to go still with this positionless basketball, you have to bring in a specialist, a guy that knows what he's doing with that. And again, I've said it many times, my pick would be Mike D'Antoni to come in and he knows that. But then you've got rumors about Steve Nash now coming in here. He was obviously the point guard. He was a lead man of that Phoenix Suns team. But then you have to look at what happened at Brooklyn. There's all kind of factors.
Kevin Durant just being a little, anyway.
Right. So, it depends on who's coming in, really. You know what I mean? Like, even at this draft, you can't really say, well, and I know I mentioned the shooting and take care of the shooting, but it really comes down to, like, what type of coach they're going to be bringing in. And, it varies from Glenn Rivers to Ron Lue. Who else has been mentioned? Some
Budenholzer, Becky Hammond.
Vogel, I think I've heard, they all have different styles of basketball, and I don't think none of them have quite ever been in a position where you have a team like Toronto, where most of your guys are 6'9". Now, again, I don't know what the mentality offensively is going to be, like the portal signing. Was that the end? Was that the beginning of the end of this whole small ball experiment? Who knows? No one really knows right now.
Coach? In Masai Trust?
Kind of like what Captain Kirk said. I kind of wonder if the Pirtle acquisition was a change in philosophy and what they want to do moving forward. Who knew someone 6'8" can't guard someone 7'1" who's really athletic? Um, but no, I guess in all seriousness, I think we need to get bigger at the guard position. I think we're too small with Fred and Malachi, truthfully. Leo Routon said that at the end of the season. It's like this team's got to get bigger at the guard position. It's weird. We were like too small at the big position and too small at the guard position until Pirtle showed up, really. And even though we get the reputation, oh, we have lots of 6'9" players and stuff like that, that's mainly on the wings, more or less. But like, you're going to have to match up with the Embiids and the Steven Adams, and then some of the bigger guards in the league, like a Drew Holiday and stuff like that. And truthfully, we don't have the personnel to do that right now.
And you got to wear a mask to guard Rudy Gobert. But go on.
Yeah, pretty much so. I kind of like what Kirk said as well. It's going to depend on who the coach is coming in. He mentioned about Glenn Rivers. He's never really had that kind of style to go, positionless basketball. Budenholzer kind of did a little bit on offense in Milwaukee when you had Brook Lopez, taking step back threes and having Drew Holiday guarding multiple positions. So Budenholzer certainly would be familiar with that. So it's going to come down to who the coach is, and I do think there's going to be a slight change in philosophy though moving forward.
Take a look at our last video, ladies and gentlemen. Coach and myself did talk about who the next coach would be, and I thank you for siding with me, Coach, because I did say Bud. Not Bud Light. Well, Bud.
Right. I think Bud's familiar with it. I'd be okay with Bud coming in. I'm kind of more Monty Williams right now. I think he'd be interesting because he's kind of the opposite of Nick Nurse, complete opposite of Nick Nurse, and I think he's more of a player's coach as well.
Now, I have one more question for you guys before we head out of here. Maybe I might have two, maybe three. But main one I would like to ask you guys is, based on who the Raptors draft at the 13th overall pick, which is where they're sitting currently, until a change might be made, do you see that depending on the position of the player that they decide to draft, right, albeit a point, a shooting guard, a small forward, maybe even, well, they don't need a center right now. They got Koloko to come up to develop. Do you think that they're going to put this player into development and have him ride the pine, or possibly the G League? Or do you see them putting them into the starting lineup? And if so, who's gone? Who's going to be leaving the squad?
I'm not too sure.
I shook you there, eh?
It depends on no, because there's a lot to process there. It depends on who they draft, and depending on who they draft, it's going to be the odd man out, I guess. There's a lot of redundancy on the Raptors. There's a lot, and again, it goes back to the philosophy of are they going to keep this philosophy? Are they going to keep this strategy of positionless basketball? And with Nick Nurse, we just didn't see it at its full potential, in my opinion. So I don't know. We'll see. Like I mentioned before, Jakob Poeltl could have been the beginning of the end of this whole thing. So we'll see. We'll see. How about you, Coach? What do you think?
I think this number 13th pick has to be in the rotation. I don't know if they're starting right away. That will depend on who it is. But I think they definitely need to start playing some minutes in order to contribute. I kind of look at it as a chance to rebuild this bench a little bit. Depending on who you get, let's just say it's Grady Dick. I would love to have him come in off the bench or even start, because you put him next to Siakam and Scotty, he could be one of the top fits you can have on this team, just because of his ability to stretch the D and their ability to create for other players on the floor. If it's Keontae George, I think he could come in and start or be sixth man right away on this team. And the same thing with Cason Wallace or Kobe Buffkin. 13th pick, I think, is someone who has to come in right now and be able to contribute right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you guys still didn't answer my question. Depending
Well,
on
I know I didn't for
depending
sure.
on who they
but-
get, who's gone? Who's
Oh,
gone?
the second part.
Well,
Can I be
hopefully-
looking at somebody?
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to send anybody to the G League. I mean, for me, that's the draft. Like, we have to pick somebody that can impact right now.
Okay, so
But if
which
somebody
current
comes
player
back,
would
so
go?
if we get Grady Dick, you know, who's gone? I mean,
Gary
we
Trent.
have to maybe, trade up. I mean, I'd get rid of, I don't know, who would you get rid of?
Gary Trent.
Gary Trent, yeah. I mean, again, there's so much to think about because I don't think Gary Trent was used properly. You know, I don't think he was used to his full advantage, to his full potential under the Nurse system. I think there was a lot of broken
Me
issues
too, brother.
under the Nurse system. So it's really hard to say, you know, should anybody really leave? You know, should we just be looking at just getting a draft choice and maybe hoping that that player has an impact this upcoming season?
Coach, who can
Right.
go?
I'm indifferent if he stays or goes, but I think Gary Trent is gone just because of what happened the end of last season. He was starting on the bench. Gary Trent wants to start. You know, he's been historically like a 38, 39% three-point shooter. We actually could use him moving forward because what do we lack? Shooting. But I just think that relationship probably with Nurse, not sure if it's with the organization per se, but I think that he's probably gone.
I'll tell you guys this. Some of my sources within the organization have been telling me that it could quite possibly be Fred, because there's been some grumblings behind the scenes with I guess you can use the word, this isn't, I'm not quoting anybody, but to maybe use the word of jealousy with Scotty coming out of nowhere when Fred was in a position poised to take over this team and be the face and the man of the team, and now it has become the future face of the team, which is instilled in Scotty Barnes. Like we've seen, Pascal ain't got no problem with that, right? We can clearly see that. But we have, like, all three of us have coached before. All three of us have played somewhere, right? So we can kind of see on the court, we've seen it over the season, just the subtle little things that fair weather fans don't and casual fans don't notice. But we've seen a little bit of friction between Scotty and Fred, mostly coming from Fred. Do you guys think that there's a possibility that the Raptors might be looking at a point guard to replace Fred, to put Scotty back up, put Scotty on that pedestal, and have him be the future of this franchise, which we all know he's going to be? The writing's on the wall. What do you
I would be starting Scotty at point guard. I mean, like, that's what he came out of college being. That's what I didn't understand about Nick Nurse and his, you know, sometimes it was a revelation to him in the media post games that, oh my God, Scotty just dished out 11 dimes in one game. Oh, maybe we should play him there a little bit more. But then he never did, you know, but he had all the hype coming out of college that he could play point guard. So I see, that's what I mean. The whole dynamic of the team was just off. Like nothing really made sense under his system. He wanted to play small ball. Well, Scotty Barnes is a 6'7" point guard. You know, why isn't he bringing up the ball off a rebound? You know, so there's a lot of stuff going on there. You know, Van Fleet. Moving forward, you know, I just think a lot of Toronto Raptor fans are going to be humbled. They put a lot of these guys on some different class of basketball player in the NBA because they thought Kevin Lowry was the GOAT, right?
He is. I think he is.
Turns out he's a bench player coming off the bench from the Miami Heat, and that's humbled a lot of Raptor players. I mean, Raptor fans, because none of them thought that. They thought he was going to go down there and rock the show, you know, just kill it. And you know, the media came out and made all kinds of noise about him being out of shape. He's not out of shape. Us Toronto fans know that's the way he looks. That is his look. That's his NBA body. He's not out of shape.
You got that big old booty.
You can't be shooting the ball at that rate, at that clip, when you're not that good of a shooter.
Coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think Fred could be gone. Masai is very loyal to the players that he drafts. They even bring in Pirtle back and stuff like that. So there's part of me that says they're going to bring Fred back and they're going to let Gary walk. But like kind of what Kirk said, I actually like Scotty at point because I don't like the spacing with him and Siakam and Pirtle in the front court. You got really nobody who can really stretch the defense, who can, you feel like they're a 3-point threat. None of those guys are. But if you
Too many
put
hands in
Scotty
between the mid and the paint, right?
right, but if you put Scotty at point and you bring in, let's just say a Keontae George, and you still have OG and Siakam for now, it might fit a little bit better. Or if you draft Grady Dick, same thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Fred. That's for sure. It won't shock me if he's not back, but it won't shock me if he is back, only because of Masai's loyalty to his own draft picks.
Interesting. Just FYI, I hope YouTube doesn't flag us for saying dick too many times. Especially coming from you, Coach. But
I know.
one last thing. I'm gonna give each of you guys a minute right here. Say what you got to say about the upcoming draft and the Raptors' possible future. The floor is yours. Starting with you, Kirk.
Hey, listen, I hope I hope the positionless basketball experiment is not quite over. Like I mentioned before, I hope they bring in a specialist that knows what he's doing on offense with this kind of team. Put Scotty at the point, man. You know how fun of basketball that is to watch? Just run and gun and go. But then again, you got to start thinking, okay, well, what happens? Like, the NBA today is all about not running your players into the ground. Like, can teams actually play like that for 82 games? Just run and gun, just small ball, fast breaking at every possible time. Because when the Raptors did do it, and especially when Siakam, Anunoby, Barnes led the break, they looked amazing, man. They looked amazing. You got Trent on the wing, you got Dick on the wing. I hope moving forward we pick up Dick. I think if they stick to the small ball, bring in a specialist, run this team like they're supposed to be run, it's going to be exciting basketball in Toronto again.
It would be nice to see Run and Gun win a championship because we all know Mike D'Antoni didn't pull that off. Coach, it's up to
Robert Horry messed up.
He did. This draft, I think, is going to be big for us moving forward. I'm of the mindset of getting a second pick in this draft, only because we don't have one next year because of the Pirtle trade. I think if there's an opportunity to get one, we should. It's a really deep draft. It's loaded with kind of wings and guards, which is something we kind of need right now. So I think we're fine with Pirtle and Koloko for the next 3 to 5 years. We're okay there. In terms of the Raptors offseason, too, kind of like what Kirk said, we need an offensive specialist. Like when Masai said I didn't enjoy watching the team this year, him and 37 million other Canadians who watch basketball probably really didn't enjoy this team. It's just we need to bring our offense into 2023, not 2010 per se. So I like to see more shooting on this team. I want to get bigger at the guard position because you get bigger at the guard position, there's the positionless basketball that could work out a little bit better as well. If you have a guard who can guard maybe 3 positions, that works better than a guard who's 5'11" trying to do that. So it'll be an interesting offseason moving forward. I do think there will be changes made.
Spoken like a true coach, having a guard that can play multiple positions, right? Because we all know when we see our guys out there and they catch that screen, right? They might not be able to guard that guy, and the other team's gunning for that. You guys made some amazing points. Yes, Raptors do need to improve shooting. Yes, there does need to be a change to get them over that hump. Yes, they are going younger, right? I agree with you, Kirk. I really do want to see the positionless basketball work because over the last so many years, it's been just 3-point shots, whatever, right? 3-pointers and a big man, right? I agree with you guys on everything you said. Hopefully, one of you guys nailed the predictions. I'm going to sign us out here. On behalf of myself, all you guys, all the viewers out there, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and